Namaste and welcome to Dragonfly Cookery and Knives. In this video we're going to be concluding our series of production cookeries versus handmade cookeries from Nepal. Now I hope to not make this very long, and I also want to get right to the point, but I don't have it scripted. I just want to talk openly with you about the joy and pleasure it is to be a knife collector, and in particular one who collects cookeries. I'm no expert. I have a lot in my collection. I've used them for a lot and for a long time, and I've become very familiar with a lot of the various different makers, whether they be production companies or the kamis from Nepal. I've had some rare opportunities to meet and talk with some of the designers, like Lynn Thompson, for instance, which I have deemed a great privilege and a great honor to have met these guys and get in their head a little bit and find out what it is that they were after. Why did they design what they did the way that they did it? Meeting people like Bob Inglis, who was such a privilege to have met and known, and who shared his knowledge so freely with people who were inspiring to be knife makers or knife designers. And he would help you along from scratch to finish. And wonderful, wonderful guy. And most of the people in the cutlery industry, I can tell you, are some of the nicest and friendliest people you will ever meet. It's just a great, great community, and such a great honor to be to know some of them and to be at least a fellow knife enthusiast. I have a blown out shoulder. I'm at a point now where wielding a mallet myself against an anvil is not something I'm likely to do now or any time in the future. If I could afford a power hammer, then maybe we might be talking. But otherwise, I'm sticking to doing my designs on the drawing board and finding gentlemen who are like-minded in design and who are very skilled and very talented in their building abilities, like Neem Tanji and Raju Borelli and Barun Borelli. These guys are fantastic, and I've given my designs to them, and they have done tremendous, just mind-blowing jobs on the designs that I've given them. They're just fantastic, and that's really exciting and a lot of fun. I really enjoy doing it. I enjoy working with these guys, and when they take my design and they add something of their own to it, it just makes it that much better. It's the two of us putting our collective conscious together and putting together something that's going to be really useful and beautiful, and it's just fun. It's just exciting, and there's just something that's really great when you can put something from here, from your mind, that you picture in your mind, and then you put it on paper, and then you take it to the anvil, and you come out with this finished product, and it comes out even better than what you envisioned it. That's the most satisfying thing. I mean, it's just, you like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's just great. But taking all that passion is why I did this series. I really love the cookery design, and for me, collecting cookeries, like when I first started collecting knives, and in particular the swords, my first choice of swords and knives were the Japanese tanto, wakizashi, and katana. The Japanese swords, and mostly because it helped me understand the culture of Japan. The more I learned about the sword, the makers who made the swords, the guys who carried the swords, how the artistry that went into it. A lot of the samurais were poets, were artists who loved to paint and draw. as a form of Zen, expression of their religion, of their of their philosophy of life, and all of that is put into the Japanese sword. Well, the Nepalese kukri, the kukri of Nepal, is no different. It is the like a national icon of Nepal. It's a national symbol, like the American eagle or the American flag is to us here in America. You know, even the Bowie knife is become an American symbol, even though most Bowie knives were not made here in the United States. They were made in England, or they were made in Mexico. They weren't even smithed here necessarily. Some were, but most of them came from England, and yet they became a national emblem as far as in the cutlery world of the United States. But in Nepal, when you can take a kukri such as this, Victorian era kukri, and know that the housewife used this, the soldier, the Gurkha used this, the shaman who goes into the house to banish evil spirits or to bring prosperity to the house, or to for some type of ritual practice to bring positive energy or to drive out negative energy out of a home, would use this in his ceremony. Or the priest during a festival might slaughter an animal for the festival using this kukri. To the field hand who goes out and gleans the wheat or the produce, the rice, whatever, with this kukri, to bring it in to feed the family and to feed the people in his village. You know, this is the tool they used. Everybody used it. And it's an icon in itself with all its symbolism to remind them of Shiva and Shakti. So this is not just a knife. It is a doorway to understand the people of Nepal, to understand their culture. And yet, it is also a very relevant and functional tool. It has great physics in this. It's a long blade. It's heavier than your average knife, but not super heavy. And because of its shape, it's weight heavy in the front, which facilitates the chopping. And with this curve, it helps you to not bend your arm in an unnatural way or bend your wrist in an unnatural way. You can hold it as a fist, and with your chopping and you allowing the weight of the blade, it actually will create its own inertia to facilitate its function as a chopper or as a slicer or a draw cut or a snap cut. You know, it's one of the most perfect designed knives of history. And it is, this is why I really love it. The handle, us Westerners always think that, well, you have to have a quillion to keep your hand from sliding up on the cutting edge. And yet the kami did is they put this simple little ring right here, and when it locks into your fingers, it keeps your hand from sliding forward. And the shape of it, which is similar to the drum of Shiva, where it's wider at the front and wider in the back and thinner in the middle, also facilitates that in locking your hand in and keeping your hand from sliding up on the cutting edge. Beautiful, perfect, elegant, good form follows function. Now, this piece of antiquity, the kami didn't have Mercedes-Benz leaf springs to go down and get and harvest and turn into a blade. They had to smelt their own steel. And yet, like this blade and this blade from antiquity, over 100 years old, has a very excellent cutting edge on it still that I could take out and chop and slice and cut with. This particular one, 1/4 inch stock that tapers down to the tip. Even though it's a long blade, it's a very light blade and very functional kukri even to this day. And yet has the dating on it in Khukuri here that actually tells you when it was made, showing that this was over 100 years old. People who have argued many times that a half-tang knife is never going to be as strong as a full-tang knife or a full stick-tang knife, and yet you have a half-tang knife that's over 100 years old, and you can hear it ring. There is nothing loose about this handle. It is 100% functional as it was the day that it was made. So this is mastery, and it's great, perfect, form follows function. It uses physics in a very great way. Me, I have a blown out shoulder, so I can't put a lot of power and strength. But with this type of tool, I don't have to put a lot of force and strength, because the ergonomics of the blade, the physics of this blade, will do much of its own work for me. This is a very friendly tool to somebody who doesn't need a lot of strength to get a lot of power. There's a lot of power in this kukri. Good form follows function, and this is why I love them so much. So when we went over this series, and we're talking about the 3Fs, the form follows function, and we talked about philosophy of use. We talked about Mies van der Rohe's less is more, or Frank Lloyd Wright's more is more. It just depends upon what you are attracted to. Some people like a lot of embellishments, so they like the fancy designs on the side of the blade, and they like the more decorative and elaborate handles, and they different grind styles on the blade, as some of the modern production kukris have. That to them is really great and functional. Like here is a great example of a production blade that is borderline overbuilt, even though it's a small knife. This kukri right here is not anywhere near as complicated as this one is in all the things that it has. First of all, it has a very intelligently designed scabbard. That I've gone over and I've talked about. This is the Fox Kukri from, it's an Italian made. But when you look at the grind on it, here you got this interesting bevel here, and then you have, which is a flat grind that comes down, and then you have a saber grind back here. You have a 1/4 inch stock that does taper to the tip. You have jipping up here for your thumb, but no finger choil up here, but it's right here behind this little integrated handguard right here that has a loop, a hole for a lanyard loop that you could tie to the back or to the front here to fix it around your hand to keep the blade in your hand. But the handle has all these different interesting little divots and things in it. It's almost bulky, and not all these things are easy to discern what the use is for it, and it's not anywhere near as comfortable in the hand as this very simple traditional design. This is comfortable, this is ergonomic, and it's less is more. And yet it still has some embellishments to kind of beautify it, but everything about this is form follows function in a very simple way. Big but simple, little but complicated, but philosophy of use. Now the designer who sat down and designed this, he did various different versions of this. He does one with kind of like a tanto blade tip on it, and more straight on this curve, and more straight on the back curve here, where it's all angles, which is interesting, but it doesn't have that. It's not a true kukri in the regards of the beauty of the sweeping lines and the wonderful belly that you get. This right here is your chopping area, and yet it has different grinds here in its chopping area, which has different blade profile, different a different grind, two different grinds that either work with each other or work against each other. This one has a very simple geometry. That chopping area goes from here to here. You have this large, broad chopping area right in this area here. And it's a flat grind that goes all the way down to a beautiful convex edge. There's no competition there. This thing does what it's designed to do. True form follows function from antiquity. So, taking that less is more approach, this is why I like the less is more than I like the more complicated. And yet you have modern production kukris like this, the Gurkha kukri from cold steel, that is, every bit of it is true form follows function right to the T. Great ergonomics, great user-friendly handle that is very comfortable in the hand, doesn't create hot spots, yet is grippy, and if I get it wet or dip it in oil, I know this isn't going to fly out on my hand. It's not going to create hot spots. It's not going to bring a lot of fatigue to my hand because it's got a little bit of that soft, spongy feel. It's not super spongy. It's still pretty hard, but it's, it has a little bit of give, so it changes the shock to the hand. That's a good solution, a decent solution for something that's meant as a chopper or a slicer. In this particular case, it's very much a chopper, and you're going to get some reverberation in the hand. Well, that handle facilitates eliminating some of that. And this scabbard is perfect. It's excellent. It's absolutely 100% form follows function. It holds and locks that kukri in. You don't need this little strap here other than to keep it at a vertical angle when it's hanging off your belt, where it's not doing this number on you, but rather it stays right in place, vertical as you want it. When you're ready to take it out of its scabbard, you just, and plus if you want to take it off your belt, you can unsnap and slide it right off. Very good design. A lot of thought went into it, and yet it is still very simple. There's nothing fancy or frilly about this kukri. It has a flat grind. It doesn't even have the cowdy on it. Just simple Gurkha kukri design, but as a modern blade. But, does that make it better than this Kaladesh blade? That is also very simple. It doesn't come with the Karda and the Chakmak, but yet it is still a traditional blade in a modern scabbard with this Kydex scabbard. Again, does the same thing that the cold steel does. Doesn't fall out. Using modern materials with tradition, with a traditional blade. This is a traditional kukri design. It's an chira. That chira here, that fuller line right here, is to lighten the blade and to change the reverberation to the hand. So this design does what this handle does in this modern material. Great form follows function. Stick tank goes all the way to the end. This has a full tank encapsulated into the craton handle. Wood handle or horn handle, but yet has that ring that locks in, and it's wider here towards the bolster and wider at the back so it doesn't fly out of your hand. So it gives you great purchase and good safety to keep your hand from sliding up on the cutting edge. So form follows function to a T, and this is very, very functional. Every bit as good as this production, if not better. And Kaladesh, by the way, I found out, is now oil tempering. In other words, are oil hardening, so they'll harden the edge in oil instead of water, and they are tempering the blade. So there's going to be a bit of spring to it. It will be able to function like a cold steel production blade. And this is handmade from Nepal, but using some modern techniques, not necessarily changing the tradition, but improving in their craft of hand making a kukri. There's no, you have a trough of oil and you're dipping the blade into the oil. It's no different than water, except that the oil helps the hardening in a better way. And when you're tempering it, it it helps the temper of the blade, the spring of the blade. And you couple that with your differential heat treatment, where if you're just hardening the edge, you're getting three great things in one kukri that makes it a really superior knife with great form follows function. So great job, Kaladesh. And again, traditional kukri, but very simple. It's a very elegant, simple design, but very traditional, with modern touch, modern flair. Now, this is all talking about form follows function and what is the design, the physics behind this beautiful and traditional kukri. But if you have, let's say you have $150 to spend or $160 to spend, you have a choice. You can spend it on a cold steel, or you can spend it on a Kaladesh handmade production or handmade. Both are excellent, excellent kukris. This one is not traditional, but traditional in design as far as shape goes, as follows the true function of the physics of the blade, the original design intent behind it. But this one is done in the traditional way. It's handmade with some modern functions to it, whether it be the oil hardening, the tempering, or the kydex scabbard. And yet you could even, for about the same price, you could go completely traditional with a very simple but traditional scabbard that is quality and safe and user-friendly, and get a beautiful traditional kukri like this Mutiny period kukri with an eke chera that has a true form or true function to its form and shape and beauty and elegance. And the horn handle is still done in the traditional way with the ring that locks your hand in, the widening up here at the bolster and the widening at the butt plate that locks your hand in and keeps your hand from sliding up on the blade. Yet very simple and traditional, and yet in that same price range of, this one maybe even a little less than the cold steel, and yet you're getting a handmade kukri from Nepal, traditional. And also for the same price. This one I believe I'm selling for $150. And this one you're getting three knives. You're getting a secondary knife that's 100% functional. It's the Carta knife that has a Scandi grind, a little bit of a belly to it, so it's great for skinning. A very functional knife that's part of the package of the larger kukri that is 100% traditional. This one has an eke chera, so it's a little bit hollow forged here, and so it lightens the blade and also changes the reverberation of the hand. Same thing that what the Kraton handle does. And again, traditional handle. Locks, even more prominent ring, locks your hand in there. Good form follows function, and this one is a little bit more than the less is more because it has the writing in it and a little bit more embellishment on the spine. But yet, the basic design is still that less is more, that very simple but very functional. If it ain't broke, why fix it? And this has been utilized and used over hundreds of years by the Gurkhas and by the Kami who make them. So, you have many choices out there, and this is a good choice for production, and this is a good choice for a handmade kukri from Nepal, whether it be more of a modern style or the strictly traditional styles. Simpler or more is more on this one because you've got the patuka buttons and the military frog that slides off, where this is only a frog and no patuka buttons. This one has the chape, the metal chape. This one has a lanyard loop on the bottom. Both are made of excellent buffalo hide leather. This one's more simple, but 100% functional. This one's more elegant and a little bit more detailed, but 100% functional too. The form follows function in both cases. But you can go with more of an economic blade. You can go with a GKCO or an ex-Gurkha Kukri house and get a blade that's under $100, roughly around, this one about $65, $66 with shipping, or without shipping. They'll ship it free if you buy it from them on eBay. And you're getting a 12-inch blade with a nice convex edge on it. It's a very thick spine, hardwood handle, stick tang, 100% handmade from Nepal. So you're getting a handmade knife for under $100 that's going to last you a lifetime and be able to pass on to your kids. And the scabbard, even though it's a little bit fatter, it's a very simple but very good quality scabbard in that they use good leather and they do it in a safe way where it's easy to slide your kukri in and out of. You push it forward, you lock it in, it doesn't fall out. It does what it's supposed to do, and it's good. There's nothing wrong with this. For an economic kukri, this is very, very good. And it's very simple. There's nothing fancy about it. There's not a lot of embellishments, but it has all the features in it that's form follows function. The ring here, whitening at the bolster, whitening here at the tank. It still does everything that the traditional, the little bit higher end kukris can do. It still functions that way. It's just not as light as those. And it doesn't have the ikchira on it to help change the reverberation to the hand. So this one you're going to feel a little bit more shock, considerably more shock. But it still has a great chopping area right here. It still holds a very good edge. And it is 100% handmade from Nepal. Whereas you could go and get an Ontario kukri that's made out of 1095 high carbon steel, which they blacken to eliminate, help eliminate rust. 1/4-inch stock. It's not as heavy as this one, but it is of traditional design and shape of a kukri. It's surely a kukri. It doesn't have the cowdy, but you have an area where you can come up behind lock your fingers in with the finger guard and the finger choil that's here, and place your forefinger, locking it against this blade. You can, to the handle here, and you can get in there and you can do some great whittling, and there's enough thickness of the steel to get a good purchase with your thumb to add pressure and to actually do what you need to do. Form follows function very, very well. Craton handle, full tang, encapsulated. Stick tang, going through the wood handle all the way to the butt plate and keeper. Both are really strong and durable and are going to last a very long time. Craton handle, you get it wet, dip it in oil, it's still going to stay in your hand. This one has that bird beak pommel. You can get back there and get a little bit more leverage to extend your chopping without hurting your hand. Very, very important. This won't create hot spots in your hand when you're utilizing it. And because it's craton, it's a little bit of that sponginess, so it will change the reverberation to your hand. Not the world's best scabbard. It does slide a bit inside the scabbard, but you got the rivets on the end that'll keep the blade from cutting through and hurting your hand. It's open in the back for easy draw, and it has a relatively decent belt loop to hold it on your belt. But for roughly around the same, about $50 to $60 for this, or $65 for a handmade kukri from Nepal, this is great. It's really great, and it's going to service you very well. And both are very, very good. Can you do what you can do on the other one? Here's your cowdy, but there's a little area here that you could rest your finger on, and there's definitely enough thickness on the spine. You could, get your thumb on there with good purchase and press, and you can do your whittling with this as well. So both of these kukris, the handmade kukri from Nepal economic style and the economic Ontario kukri, are both equal to one another. They're both going to function extremely well. One is handmade from Nepal and the other one is production. But they will function for you every bit as good. Either one. You can't lose. And if your budget would allow you to buy two of these, two of these is not bad. One handmade from Nepal and one from a production blade. Or instead of spending that $150, $160, whatever, for two, you could spend it and get one, higher end quality kukri that will last you, your lifetime and be very beautiful, very functional, and do everything those other ones can do, because you can still get up there and get a good purchase and do your whittling with it by choking up on it. And it locks in your hand really great, and it's much lighter, much faster, and it has features in the blade already designed to help change the reverberation to your hand to make it even more friendlier to your hand. It's as they say, you get what you pay for, but what you're getting with this or this or this, you're not getting something that's crap. You're not getting something that's going to fail you. This kukri will last you a lifetime and lifetimes. You can pass it on to your family members. Same thing with the cold steel, with the Ontario, with the GKCO, more budget-friendly kukri. So there's a lot to think about, but the handmade kukris from Nepal, I love them. You can't, whether it's this guy or whether it's Kaladesh or Neem Kanji and my design, you're going to get something that's going to be really useful to you no matter what. But the most important thing in selecting and making that decision, whether you go with production or whether you go with handmade kukri from Nepal's, whichever kukri house or whichever production company, what it all boils down to is, does that form follows function of that particular blade fit you, fits your hand, fits your needs? Most important thing is the comfort. What you're going to use is what feels good in your hand, what also does what you expect it to do. So if, all of these kukris that I've been showing you fit my hand very well and they feel comfortable. So any one of them, with the exception of the fox knife, this one I wouldn't necessarily gravitate to because I don't like the hand. The blade is good. I'm a little questionable about the ergonomics of the different grind profiles. I think they might compete against each other when chopping. But I haven't used this enough to make a definitive decision on that yet. So I still am on the fence on it. But I have used these blades for a long time. And I'm not on the fence on this. And whether it be Kaladesh, whether it be Raju Borelli or Torah blades, most of them fit my hand really well. Some of Torah blades are too small or too fat for my hand. I might have, I think I've showed you my collection of maybe about 6 or 7 Torah blades, and out of those, I would say 3 of them are excellent fits to my hand, that I would grab them any day, any time and use them. And other ones I would kind of, if they were the only cooker between those, if that was the only one sitting nearby, I would pick it up and use it. It would be okay, but it doesn't have that handshake feel that feels really great in your hand. Okay, and that's what if you're going to just purchase one kukri, and you're going to be really happy with your purchase, I strongly suggest that you get out there and you test some of these. Find friends that have kukris from different makers and try them out before you make that purchase. If you're only going to buy one kukri, try it out for a little bit, because when you get the right one in your hand, oh man, it's perfect. And then you sit there and you go, now I know why people like kukris. But when you get something that is too heavy, or the handle is too big or too small, or too fat or too narrow, and you go to use it, or it has some weird dimensions on it, like this Fox one, weird textures and things on it that create hot spots in the hand, and it's not, what would be the good word for it? When I pick up this handle, there's, at first you see these rings on the handle, and you go, that looks like that'll be really uncomfortable. Visually, you're thinking this, and then you put it in your hand, and you instantly get it. Oh, now I understand why that ring is there. And no, it isn't uncomfortable. Amazingly enough, it locks my fingers in really good, and I have great control over this kukri. And my hand won't slide up on the cutting edge. Oh man, I understand the form follows function on this. It has, it makes instant sense to you when you hold it in your hand. You get it. There's nothing complicated. There's nothing you have to read a manual, owner's manual on why the ring is there and how you put your hand. When you put it in your hand, it's instant for you to figure it out. How it's supposed to be used, how it's held in your hand. You put this in your hand from Fox Knives, and with all these weird things, going on, these little divots and stuff like this I get for pinch grip. I get that. Kind of locks your finger in, sort of. But that sharp edge right here kind of makes it a hot spot. You're going to build some calluses real fast with your fingers using that. This, maybe for a reverse grip, but even then I don't, it just doesn't make sense for me, So there's a lot, it's not intuitive. When I put my hand on this, I don't instantly get what all these features on this handle are. It's not intuitive to me. I think that's a good word for it. Whereas the kukris from Nepal are instantly intuitive, even though they're not as familiar to the Western mind as something like the handle design of this that has an integrated finger guard, little choil, belly, and this bird beak pommel. We instantly understand that. We instantly get this because it's very westernized. We're used to knives with hand guards and with pommels on the back end of the blade that lock your hand in and keep your hand from flying off the back end. We're used to that. Whereas this ring design is something we're not. But as soon as you put it in your hand, it's instantly intuitive. You understand it. You know it. It makes sense. Just as this design makes sense. You understand it. And then when you get it in your hand with this belly, you understand that belly. Because you're like, wow, that feels really comfortable. My hand doesn't get tired, doesn't get fatigued. And when I hit something, this soft, spongy material, it's actually hard but a little bit spongy, that rubbery feeling. It diminishes some of that reverberation to the hand. Some. If it had an Ichira on here, it would be even more. But this is what I'm talking about as far as production versus handmade kukris from Nepal. What you're getting with a production blade is you're getting precision. They'll make this same kukri over and over and over again, exactly the same as this one. Exactly. There might be a little, piece of rubber left over or something. It might give it a little bit of a variation of one from another, but otherwise they're going to be identical identical in every possible way. But is it a good design? Is it functional? Yes. It has tempering along with hardening, and it's made from a good steel, 1095 high carbon steel. It has a great handle material. All of them are going to be exactly the same. You get a handmade kukri from Nepal, and the handle might be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. Blade might be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. And when I'm saying little bit, I'm talking really little bit. Like this is supposed to be a 12-inch blade. It might be 12 and an eighth on one, and 11, almost just under 12 inches. It's still in that ballpark, but it was 100% handmade. And no two are going to be exactly alike. This one is made out of this particular dragonfly hanchi has the horn handle, and it has the beautiful marbling on the back. It's beautiful, but no two are going to come out exactly the same. The marbling's not going to be right here. It might be somewhere else, or it might be more smoky gray, or it might be a little bit brown. It's going to look different. Every single one is going to have its uniqueness, and yet it has the same design principles. It'll be the same shaped blade and roughly the same length as this one, and yet every bit is functional. Same hardening in the traditional way that the commies in Nepal make it. So, production, exact, right to the T every time. Handmade, near perfection, not exactly 100% exact, but you're going to get the same quality, the same excellence, the same handmade attention, where a kami spent a lot of time putting his thoughts, his emotions, his creativity, his skill, his labor, into making this one kukri for you. And there's something very, very, very special about that I like a lot. So I tend to gravitate more towards the handmade, the custom handmade kukri, because I can actually tell the kami I want the handle to be a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. I can actually tell him I want this to have a hollow forge on it, or an ikchira on this blade, and they'll do it for you. It'll still be the same design and everything, but they'll have an ikchira in it. You can do that with a handmade kukri from Nepal that you cannot do with a Gurkha kukri from cold steel. I can't change this handle. This is the handle it comes with. That's the only way it comes. It comes in black, not blue, not red, not green. It comes black, and it comes craton. It doesn't come with buffalo or wood or bone, or if I wanted to put a micarta or G10 handle on it, it doesn't come that way. It only comes one way out of the factory with a craton handle. Not bad, it's functional, it's good, but here I have a choice. I can ask the kami to make it in wood, or I can make it bone, or I can make it horn, and this is how it comes out. And it's beautiful, and it's functional, and it has its own uniqueness to it. And that's the appeal of a handmade kukri from Nepal that stands over what you get in a production blade. Tradition and customization, and sometimes with very little extra cost, if any. There might be a little bit of cost if you change the material in some cases, where horn might be a little bit scarce, or the bone might be a little bit scarce, or but otherwise usually the price doesn't change just because you change the handle material or you added a chira or not. So something to think about when it comes to looking at the handmade kukris over the production kukris. All have their place, all have their purpose. One, you're supporting the commies. This is all they'll ever do in their life is make kukris, and their children's and their children's children. Very few, if any, ever get to graduate college or go on and change their career, even though the caste system has been outlawed. They're still locked into that caste system. But those that do it and have, like Neem Tenji and Raju Borelli and all the various different commies that are building these kukris have put their heart and soul in it, because they make this their life. This is their life. They make these, and they want to make the best product they can possibly make. Some are more skilled than others, and some are no longer with us, and they're the masters. They're the masters. But when you can get one of these and add it to your collection, or even put it, touch up the edge, clean up the blade, oil it, oil your handle, you could take this out and use it for the rest of your life. Over 100 years old, and it's still going to function and work perfect for you. That's how well it's made. The masters made it, and these guys knew what they were doing. Well, that concludes my conclusion to the production kukris versus the handmade kukris from Nepal. You saw them perform in the chopping test, and you saw that they were all functioned pretty in par with each other. Some of the heavier blades took more material out faster when chopping, but when it came to doing your fine tasks of whittling or whatever, they all functioned the same. Only one failed, and that was an unusual thing, because the other Torah blades that we tested didn't fail. So it was just one that didn't get the best heat treating. And that sometimes happens. And it happens whether it be a handmade kukri from Nepal or a production blade. I've seen a video of where a cold steel's blade snapped right here at the handle. Does that mean they're all like that? They're all going to do that? No. That was just one weird, there was probably a little hair fracture in the tempering or the heat treat of that steel at that one particular blade, but all the rest functioned perfectly, and it just got bypassed in quality control. So hopefully this was useful information, and please like and subscribe on my YouTube channel. Leave your comments there if you like, or also leave me comments and questions if you want more details on any of the kukris I've shown. Message me on my Facebook page at Blue Dragonfly Trading Post, and please, by all means, visit my website at dragonflykukriandknives.com. Thank you so much, folks, for bearing with me and watching these videos, and I hope that they were useful information that'll help you make good and wise decisions in acquiring your next kukri, whether it's to add to your collection or to be your very first kukri. Namaste. God bless. Happy New Year. Thank you.